Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of BSing Sports here on the BSing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Usually on my Eagles recap shows, I would have Kyle on with me. He's a little bit busy today. He's cutting some trees in his backyard, so he couldn't get on. So it's all right. I'm going to give you the Eagles recap of their loss to the New York Jets on Sunday. A brutal loss that it was. My wife saying, "Hello, handsome. Hello, beautiful. Thanks for tuning in. I know you feel like you have to, but I still appreciate it about you." Um, yeah, so I mean, listen, let's just jump right into this. Obviously, the Eagles come out and they lose 20-14. They get two early touchdowns. The Eagles, that is, go up 14-3 at one point, and then throughout the rest of the game, the Jets defense absolutely dominate Jalen Hurts in the offense, and the Jets come out victorious. Jalen Hurts stats were 62% completion percentage, 280 yards, one touchdown, one throwing touchdown, three interceptions, 8 rushes for 47 yards, one touchdown. That's a 5.9 average. I bring up the rushing yards for a reason. Listen, there's a lot of places to point blame in this game. You can't specifically point at Jalen Hurts. You can't specifically point at Lane Johnson going out, because he does go out after playing 9 plays. Also, the Eagles record without Lane Johnson, and Tim Hawkins pointed this out to me the other day. Tim Hawkins is one of our loyal viewers. Said, the Eagles are, I think, 14-27 or 28 when Lane Johnson is not in, and I mean that's just telling about how good of a right tackle Lane Johnson actually is. Not to mention, he hasn't given up a sack in more than 2 seasons. It's extremely impressive of Lane Johnson. But again, you can't point to just that event, Lane Johnson going out, to saying that the Eagles lost. That they lost because overall the Jets played a more complete football game than the Philadelphia Eagles did. Point blank, straight on. I know that Jalen Hurts had 3 interceptions. However, he hits Dallas Goedert in the hands. Goddard turns to make a move. The ball is punched out. It falls right in the defensive lineman, Quentin Williams' arms, and he runs for like 6 yards back. So not on Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. The second one, more on Jack Driscoll than Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. And honestly, if I'm pointing more blame on that specific play, it's the one I'm referring to where Driscoll gets beat. Jalen Hurts holds the ball a long time, but that's because the play called for a long out and up by A.J. Brown, which means you need time for the play to develop, and he just ran out of time. And then obviously his arm is hit, it's picked off. That's the second one. I'm not putting those two specifically on Jalen Hurts. However, that third one in the fourth quarter, when they're trying to come back, come down the field, the Eagles are, and either put the clock away or win the game there, that interception was really ugly, because I know thought he was trying to get the ball to Dallas Goedert, but he clearly made a terrible read and threw the ball directly into the hands of the defender in that scenario. I'm having some audio issues today. If I don't sound right, please let me know. Anybody. Now, having said that, I found a unique stat today online about Jalen Hurts specifically, and this goes back to Johnson, the offensive coordinator, and Nick Sirianni, and their ability to put players in positions to be successful, or just being consistent, I guess, is the real thing for me. Jalen Hurts has run the ball 15 times less than he did through 6 weeks last year. That's for a total of 45 yards less to this point. If you break that down over Jalen Hurts' career, though, that's an entire game's worth of production out of Jalen Hurts' legs that we aren't seeing here through 6 weeks. And I think here's the thing. Here's what I think that they're doing is they saw how good Jalen Hurts could be last year from the pocket, and instead of slowly making him incorporate that more into his game, they went a full 180 from, hey, listen, you're a dual threat quarterback, to, hey, stand here in the pocket and throw the football. And that's not Jalen Hurts' game. And that's on the coaching if that's what's going on. So get it figured out there, Johnson and Sirianni, because you're screwing our boy up. And I can understand why some fans are disgruntled and some fans are looking at Jalen a little bit sideways right now. But yeah, Tim Hawkins comes out and says, let's not throw the ball. It was 45 times in a game, because that's not Jalen Hurts' strength. Jalen Hurts' ability, and you saw it a little bit on display even against that. And listen, I know the Jets were depleted, but that's a good defensive team regardless of whether they're depleted or not. He's able to get out of the pocket and create space. And for whatever reason this year, they've like flat out told him, we'd rather you throw the ball than run the ball. And I don't understand it. Again, I told you already, he was averaging 5.9 yards an average on run, and the Eagles couldn't get the running game going with their running backs. Like, if that's the case and that's going down, as a coach, you need to see this. You need to let Jalen Hurts run the ball. Cut and dry. Yeah, Z Money, I couldn't help but notice you were absolutely nowhere to be found last week, my boy. It's good to have you. Thanks for joining me here. I appreciate you. You can give me some comments if you'd like. But you were nowhere to be found last week, and I commented on it. Listen, teams lose to bad teams when they're not prepared, and the Eagles did not look prepared. Let's just be flat out honest. They looked pretty decent the first 2 drives, but then as soon as the Jets changed their game plan, it went away. It was gone. Z Money says, my phone died and stuff, apparently, because, they don't make phone chargers or nothing. Like, whatever, it's cool. Tim Hawkins says Gainwell and Scott average good yardage on their runs, just not Swift. Here's what I think the problem is with the entire running attack, especially in the red zone, because I want to talk about the red zone while I'm at it. So let's just get into like everything. I'm going to bounce from topic to topic. I'm by myself, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not losing my train of thought. It is what it is. Okay, so Z Money again. Eagles lose, Niners lose, Cowboys win. Sounds like a good weekend. It sounds like a good weekend to you, but I'm going to stand tall on this one and say that good teams lose to bad teams, or teams that probably should have been good if Aaron Rodgers was still on the field. Because and I really do believe this, either looking ahead of them, or they just don't come up with a definitive game plan against that specific team. And again, I was about to say this, is the Jets adjusted after the Eagles scored 2 quick touchdowns. They adjusted the defense. They saw some schemes and some consistencies offensively from the Eagles, and they changed it up, and they were able to create havoc. I mean, you're talking they got 4 turnovers in this game. You're going to lose when you're -4 in the turnover margin, right? And then the Eagles offense just didn't adjust. The Jets kept throwing different looks at you. You didn't adjust. Hurts has 3 turnovers thrown, or 2, through most of the game, 2 turnovers throwing the football, and you don't adjust and let him run the ball more. You couldn't really get a good running attack going, so rather than playing 12 personnel with two tight ends on the field to try and attempt of helping with blocking a little bit, because again, I already said Jack Driscoll was kind of, being really challenged over there. Not to mention you have your backup right guard in there as well, and then Lane Johnson goes out. Like, all these things are huge factors into the overall performance of the Philadelphia Eagles against the Jets on Sunday. Do I think the Jets should have won? No, but that's not where we're sitting right now. We're sitting at 5-1 because the Jets beat you. It is what it is, right? Z Money is making a very un-Dallas-like comment, and I kind of like it. He said, Hurts looked like Dak, and Dak looked like Hurts. That's true. I'm not going to go into the Cowboys game last night. They did beat the Chargers 20-17, I believe the score was, but Dak Prescott ran for 48 yards, which is unlike Dak Prescott, and it's more like Jalen Hurts. And Tim Hawkins says the same thing. I just pointed out the backup lineman situation, but I think Tim Hawkins is referring to me saying that they should have been playing more 12 personnel. For those of you who don't know, and I probably should be better at explaining these things because it just like goes in my head and I know what it means, but it doesn't mean that you as viewers know what it means. 12 personnel is when you have 2 tight ends on the field. So it's 12 personnel is 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end, one running back. And I mean, honestly, their third wide receiver hasn't really been, we'll get into the guy they signed today, hasn't really been that fantastic. I like Alamadeus Zaccheaus. I'm going to butcher his name, and I apologize, my man, if you ever watch these shows and I butcher your name. I'm so sorry. And I like him better than Kes Watkins. Nick Sirianni gave some bullshit answer about Watkins spreads the field because he's fast. He's not that much faster than Zaccheaus. I went into this last week on that recap show. It is what it is. But no, so your third wide receiver isn't even that good to begin with. I thought you should have been playing more 12 personnel and trying to create space in the running game. I'm not the head coach, and that's pretty much what this comes down to. Is I'm just a guy talking, right? Got a podcast talking to you. Let's see. Tim Hawkins, who are you referring to as my man had over 500 yards? When you say these things, give me some context. I'm just talking to you and you guys and myself right now. I think he's referring to Jalen Hurts and the rushing. I mean, we all know that, right? Z Money, and I do agree with this. Listen, those Jets, the reason these Jets corners aren't starting is because of the 2 guys ahead of them. Those 2 guys, Sauce Gardner and the other one, are all pro cornerbacks. So the guys underneath of them, it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that they're not as good as Sauce Gardner and the other guy. I don't know the other guy's name. I'm sorry. But listen, the Jets are in a good spot. If they have that much depth in the secondary, I'm super jealous as an Eagles fan because we have no depth in the secondary. And the only thing Howie Roseman can do after spending all of Monday looking at secondary help was sign Josiah Scott off of the Steelers practice squad. Again, Steelers, another pretty good defense. Maybe he's on the practice squad because there was just too much depth in front of him. He'll probably be a starter here in this upcoming week. He's familiar with the Eagles. He was an Eagle before. But it doesn't mean that that's a real improvement. Here's a kind of improvement, I guess. Information came out today. Adam Schefter reported it first. Philadelphia Eagles have signed Julio Brown. Thanks. Appreciate that. DJ Reed. Thank you very much, Z-Money. I couldn't think of his name. I knew it was something simple, too. But no, so the Philadelphia Eagles signed Julio Jones to a one-year deal. I don't have the contract parameters. I tried looking for it right before the show, couldn't find it. I know that it's a one-year deal. Now, Julio Jones played with A.J. Brown in Tennessee. This is probably one of his better quarterback situations. I mean, Matt Ryan was really, really good there for some years. And when that was happening, Julio Jones had some monster seasons. But Julio Jones is like a ghost of the shell that he used to be back in 2016, 2017. I don't like it because, again, for all the reasons I just said, I don't dislike Zacchaeus. I don't like Watkins. I'll admit that. And I know that you're a little bit short on wide receiver, but you don't need help at wide receiver. You've got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are your starters. I know that if one of them gets hurt, you got a problem, and you're looking at that problem right now in the secondary. So maybe you're trying to be proactive. But for me, you don't need wide receiver help this second. You need secondary help right this second. And no offense to Josiah Scott, he's obviously a better football player than me because he's playing in the NFL. Josiah Scott's not cutting it for me. I think you need to start looking at possibly getting a trade. That kid Chin in Carolina is looking really solid. So I think you need to, if you're Howie Roseman, I think you need to stop adding personnel that you don't necessarily need and start adding personnel that you most certainly do need. Now, I heard that Lane Johnson today, because again I mentioned him going out early in the game. It isn't dealing with a severe ankle injury. He could play Sunday night. That's how unsevere the ankle injury is. From what I understand, Darius Slay should be activated for Sunday night, and Jalen Carter also should be activated for Sunday night. So Z-Money says Slay has been quiet, or I just don't see it because I'm not an Eagles fan. You're not wrong. Slay hasn't been as shut down as he was the last two seasons. And then it come out when he took a non-contact injury that he was, per the Eagles website, it isn't clear yet how the Eagles plan to use Jones, but the team put Kes Watkins on IR prior to Sunday's game. So it's a depth signing. So a depth signing would be calling a guy up from the practice squad. You get a couple guys on the practice squad that probably could have come up. Devin Allen comes to mind. Greg Ward, I think, is still on the practice squad, comes to mind. I don't think you need to go out and get a guy with the name of Julio Jones, because I think what that's going to do is maybe cause some tenacity in the locker room. We've already seen A.J. Brown. He swears it wasn't an argument about touches, but I couldn't notice the increase in his touches the last 4 weeks. Complain a little bit about his touches, and then Devontae Smith clearly upset on the sideline 2 weeks ago when they were beating up on the Rams because he wasn't being utilized. Now, I do have a menu over here for drops. Devontae Smith had 4 drops in this game. One of them was kind of a good play by the defender, but then he missed at the end of the game a really, really, really easy pass over the middle that probably could have got them 5 to 7 yards and gotten them much closer for a much easier third down, and he dropped it. Now, he owned up to it 100% in the locker room. He was asked about it, and he said, they said, what do you, like, what happened there? Was it like something where you heard footsteps? And he said, no, it was nothing. I just dropped the effing ball. And then they asked him again, like, what did he mean? Like, what can you take away from this event? He said, there's nothing to take away from it. I just dropped the damn ball. I need to catch the effing ball. So I really like the, hey, that was on me. I'm not making an excuse. I should have caught the ball. We lost, not primarily because of that play, but we had a chance to win had I made that catch. Flat out, end of story. I like the ownership there. But again, I already mentioned the Dallas Goedert catch and kind of drop. I get it. He got hit real quick and they called it an interception because it is technically an interception. But I feel like Goddard's gotta bring it in and know that you're getting hit and secure the football. That's me. That's how I feel. Others can feel differently about it. Seems like a lot of wide receiver one are complaining about touches. AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. That's from Z Money there. You're 100% right. I think it's something that's going around. The problem is that quarterbacks are catering to it. Coaching strategies are catering to it. These guys don't get in their opinion, enough touches for a week or two. And then the following game plan is to just feed them the ball. Now, fortunately for the Eagles, that's worked out. A.J. Brown has his, I think, 4th straight 120-plus yard game. It works out in that scenario, but now you're hyper-focusing on it. You'd think with throwing the ball 45 times, which I've already said is not Jalen Hurts' forte and it's not his strength, and he should not be doing that. But you would assume to be, if Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball 45 times a game, that he'd be able to spread the ball out. But I want to repeat what I said before, that Jets defense schemes perfectly against this Eagles offense. And it's up to the offense to make more adjustments. This is one of the biggest complaints that we had against John Gannon last year on the defensive side of the ball. I want to get into Sean Desai because I actually was pretty happy with his game plan. But you don't make adjustments. You can't expect to win if you're not going to make an adjustment, because you're going to do something in the first half and they're going to see it and recognize it in the second half, and it's the same thing. They're going to be able to cause turnovers, and they absolutely proved it. The corner who picked off the last ball from Jalen Hurts in the Jets game flat out said, the coaches told me that if he lines up like this and he takes a step to his left, that I need to back out in coverage, and the ball came right to me. Make adjustments. That's literally your job, is to make adjustments and be responsible. So, again, Johnson, Sirianni, I'm literally talking to you here. Well, figuratively, because I know you're not watching, but you get my point. Not to bring it off topic, but one guy I feel bad for is Lamar all the while. I do feel bad for Lamar Jackson. Now, having said that, the Eagles look like the Ravens wide receivers out there on Sunday, so I can understand where his frustration is coming from. Jones A says, Eagles need to be more aggressive about punching the ball out on defense. I agree. Again, I already said this. You're losing the turnover battle 4-0. You're losing the game. The fact that you were able to hang around that long is a testament to how long your defense kept you in the game. Zach Wilson has looked good over the last few weeks. Good enough over the last few weeks. They got a good defense. I've said this already. The Jets do. And Zach Wilson has put that team in position to win against now the Chiefs and the Eagles, and he pulled it off against the Eagles. So, yes, I agree that the defense needs to be more aggressive trying to take the football away. Let's see here. Would you say the Eagles or Niners loss is more embarrassing, even though y'all are still tied for first with the Lions? I'm going to say they're equally as embarrassing, only because the Browns were playing with an XFL quarterback in PJ Walker. Now, he was responsible. He didn't turn the football over, and that Browns defense is legit. And then, obviously, Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. I think Kittle missed a handful of snaps. They lose an offensive lineman there in San Francisco. So that's something to keep an eye on with the depth of San Francisco right now, because the whole media makes a big deal about the fact that since Christian McCaffrey went to the Niners, their regular season with Brock Purdy has been perfect. We're about to find out if there's a reason Brock Purdy looks so good, because it looks like Christian McCaffrey might miss a few games. I would be concerned if I were Niner fans. We're -1 in touch and turnover differential on the season. We're -1. We're -4 against the Jets. That's not to say the Eagles' loss isn't embarrassing. It is embarrassing. So obviously, I would have liked to have seen the Jets lose that game, but that's exactly what had to have happened there going into the fourth quarter. The Eagles weren't going to win it. The Jets would have had to lose it, and they almost did, truthfully. The Eagles were clearly shell-shocked at the game plan, and they couldn't get anything going. They couldn't muster it. That's the first time in 2.5 seasons I've seen Jalen Hurts sit on the bench and do one of these, because it was like, I see what they're doing. I just can't top it. Part of that goes back to Jalen maybe trying to do too much of the wrong thing. I get it. The coach called a pass play, but you've already seen that the corners are covering really tight. Drop back, fake a pass, run, rather than all these design quarterback runs on first down in the red zone. There is nobody in the league right now that doesn't think you're trying to run the ball in the red zone on first down. There's nobody. They know you're struggling. They know you're going to try and get any yardage you can get to get closer. They know you're running the football. How come you can't do a damn play action play? What's so difficult about that? But I digress. Also, people are saying that they brought Julio Jones in as a red zone weapon. You've got Dallas Goedert, one of the most sure hands. I know he had the mistake earlier, and I've already harped on him. One of the most sure hands tight ends in football, and he's not exactly small. And you've got A.J. Brown, who is a beast. You know how many times I saw A.J. Brown this year just catch the ball out in front of him with corners trying to smack it away, and he just catches it and runs? It's amazing. I don't think you needed the additional weapon in the end zone, not to mention Devontae Smith is really fast. I do think that throwing the ball as much as they are to DeAndre Swift out of the backfield is a mistake as well. You're forcing Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 45 times a game, and it's a mistake. Turn around, hand the ball off. You want to get Swift the ball in space, scheme him in space with your blocking. Don't just be like, oh, run a little wheel route over there and have Jalen throw. No, scheme him open to run. This is on you, coaching. I'm coming at you. Scheme him open. Z-Money says, I'm surprised the Eagles' down run play actions seem like a perfect scheme. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. You scrambled the words on me there a little bit, but I got what you're saying. He's saying that the Eagles' play actions usually are pretty effective because you have the threat of Jalen Hurts, the threat of DeAndre Swift, the threat of A.J. Brown. So they usually do work. But in the red zone right now, for whatever reason, Brad Johnson's just straight up calling runs, and it's mind-boggling. Not to mention, 2 weeks ago, Nick Sirianni flat out said, yeah, we're trying to get Jalen Hurts to protect himself a little bit. And then you call a handful of quarterback run plays in this game that left Jalen Hurts extremely exposed because you had him running to the right side of the line, which we've already discussed had a pair of backups playing. This isn't scheming guys open. This isn't scheming to beat a team. That was honestly not doing anything and showing that when you don't change your game plan, you're going to lose. You're a very good team. Very good. One of the best rosters in the NFL, up there with the 49ers. But coaching matters. The coach has to scheme plays open. Tim Brandt, I know you're listening. And then players have to execute. It's gotta be a good game plan, or as good as your players are, it's not going to matter. That was a nice little rant. Let's see. I went through accountability. I went through that. Listen, having said all of those things, the Eagles are still 5-1. Yeah, they had a bad loss to the Jets. Okay, fine. Nick Sirianni said something that shocked the shit out of me yesterday in his press conference. He said, we're using the same playbook, which goes right back to what I was just saying. Okay, so you're using the same playbook and you're not having as much success. That must be how you're going about the playbook. It must be how you're what's the word I'm looking for? Scheming the plays out of the playbook versus it's how you're approaching the playbook. If it's the same playbook and you're not having as much success, it must be the play calling, right? Because you got the same personnel, better even, because I think DeAndre Swift is better than Miles Sanders. So you've got better personnel. It's the same playbook. Well, then you're the problem. Z-Money, yeah, we know we got Miami. I'm about to touch on that real quick. Way to segue into it for me. Z-Money says Eagles cornerbacks better rest up. They got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle coming. Thanks for taking that segment from me, brother. Appreciate it. No, seriously. Again, we already mentioned how Darius Slay looks like he's lost a step. Bradley Roby actually hasn't been terrible in the slot since we picked him up 2 weeks ago. But it looks like we might be without Reed Blankenship. I haven't heard anything on the injury report about Reed Blankenship. So if somebody's heard something, let me know. So something to keep an eye on there is, our significantly better of our starting safeties has a potential to miss Sunday night's game. Now, keep in mind, we play Sunday night, so he's got all Sunday to take whatever shots he needs, cortisol or whatever they gave, the magic medicine they gave Patrick Mahomes at halftime at the Super Bowl. And yeah, Tim Hawkins, you're right. We did shut down Kupp for a half because, and I wanted to touch on this before, Sean Desai is making adjustments. Unlike his offensive coordinator on the other side, our defensive coordinator is making adjustments and finding new ways to try and shut down offenses. Now, look, Zach Wilson didn't turn the ball over in this game against the Eagles. The Eagles got no turnovers, but for the most part, outside of a few random plays here and there, they couldn't get anything going more than 7 yards. And I get it. Consistently 7 yards is bad, but it was an average of 7 yards, which means there were a lot of short yardage plays in addition to the 3 kind of longer plays. And then 2 of those longer plays got called back because of bad penalties. One of them is the injury to Reed Blankenship, the blindside block, which I didn't actually think was a blindside block by Alan Lazard. I didn't think that should have been a flag, but I'm not a referee. They saw it live. They felt like it was a flag. Tom McCarthy, what's going on, bud? Thanks for joining us. But yeah, let's get into the Dolphins game. Tua Tagovailoa, if I had to rank my top 5 quarterbacks right now, Tua Tagovailoa would be at the top of the list. Mahomes hasn't looked like the Mahomes of the past. Allen kind of sort of looked horrendous against the Giants the other night. Herbert didn't look I know it's dealing with a broken finger, but it's on the opposite hand. Didn't look super great against the Cowboys. Hurts looked bad against the Jets. Purdy looked terrible against the Browns. While Dak did not turn the ball over last night, I don't believe, he didn't exactly look super phenomenal. I think they benefited a lot from their defense shutting down the Chargers. No offense to Z-Money and your team or anything. Dak didn't look as phenomenal as, the Cowboy fans and fandom might lead you to believe he may have looked. So Tim Hawkins responds to my quick rankings there. Tua has the quickest release in the NFL, and the Eagles struggle with that. If they can't get pressure on Tua, the Eagles are really going to struggle. I do my prediction show on Saturday night with my whole team here on BSing, so I'm not going to give you a prediction. However, I do say that the team that we saw on Sunday against the Jets is not the same Philadelphia Eagles team Miami is going to deal with on Sunday night in Philadelphia wearing them Kelly Greens. And I firmly believe that. So, keep your eyes open. Z-Money, I wasn't trying to insult or nothing, but the Dallas fandom, just like I know the Dallas fandom, tends to think that Dak Prescott is like the next coming of, a certain guy, and he isn't. Okay, see? Thank you for being a realist. That's all I ask of fans. I'm a realist. I just told you how bad Jalen Hurts and the Eagles played this past Sunday. I'm a realist. I'm a Birds fan, but I'm a realist. I'm a really, really, really objective fan. I'm glad some Cowboys are starting to notice. Cowboys actually threw the ball to Cooks, and he caught them. He's a journeyman, but he's got what, 6,000 yard receiving seasons under his belt. Like, he's not a pushover. There's something to be said about like a comfort level with your receivers, and for whatever reason, he just, I guess, didn't get enough time in training camp with Dak Prescott. I actually don't know. I don't follow the Cowboys, so I don't know. I just was watching last night's game and happened to notice Dak didn't look as great as I've been, led to believe by Cowboy fans. That's all. That's all I'm trying to get at. But yeah, so Miami's obviously the fastest team in the NFL. The Eagles are missing a step right now with all the injuries in secondary, and even if Slay does play, I think there's still a step lost there. But I know Tyreek Hill is dealing with a hamstring injury. Made him leave the game for a few plays, and then he came in, and then even when he came back, he caught a ball, but he didn't look real good. So maybe that's something that develops into something. Obviously, Achane, however you say his last name, is on IR right now. Super fast kid out of the running back position. Raheem Mostert's starting there. I think the Dolphins just called somebody else up from the practice squad. I'm not entirely sure. But no, I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a really good battle of a pair of 5-1 teams here in South. Well, I'm in Florida, but in South Philadelphia. So again, looking forward to seeing it. The only other thing I have to add to that is go Phillies. Outside of that, thanks for joining me here on BSing Sports, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Thank you. Have a good night.